Hello, I'm Brian Jackson, editor of itbusiness.ca, and I'm here with another episode of Head Honcho Hangouts. I have with me today Wayne Berger, the country manager for Regus Canada. Wayne, welcome.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you, and I wonder if you can start us off by just telling us a bit about what you do at Regus. How did you come to be the country manager in Canada? Give us a taste of your history.
You bet. So as country manager, I manage our Canadian business, basically the operations for our 74 locations and growing across the country. How I came to Regus is an interesting story. For the last 10 years, I've been with Regus now for about 8 months. For the 10 years previous to that, I worked for a Fortune 500 company, both in the US and in Canada. Great company, innovative in its own right. And enjoyed the 10 years there, and an opportunity presented itself with Regus in which I knew of the company, and what was interesting for me was working for a great company that I had prior, very innovative in its style, but in a business that was very much mature life cycle at a point of decline. And what inspired me about Regus was it's a business that frankly is growing and in a very much a high growth, high demand industry, and it's a very innovative business building into what the new style workforce looks like. So opportunity presented itself, had the chance to make a transition over, and it's been a fun, interesting 8 months.
Now, when I think about Regus, I think about this company that is offering people flexible workspaces, as you say, and technology has totally changed the definition of a flexible workspace. And you think about how people work nowadays. I mean, they'll pull out their mobile device, their laptop, their tablet, and they'll get work done wherever they see fit. It could be the Starbucks where they're connecting to Wi-Fi, or a hotel lobby while they're traveling, or maybe they're just in the middle of the park and they're tethering their smartphone and getting data to their laptop that way. So considering all the ways that technology has changed things lately, how has Regus adapted, and perhaps how has it been challenged?
A couple ways it's adapted. It's a great question, and it's interesting when you see what's taking place out in the world today. And it's frankly, I find it very, very interesting, very exciting, and I think that the definition of employment is going through a real renaissance period right now. So I'll give you a good example. I took the train in today to our location. I happen to be in Liberty Village today, and sitting right across me was a gentleman who was on his laptop. He had his earbuds in. He was on a conference call with other people, connected via his laptop, via WebEx. Not that I was staring at a screen that much, but I was watching what was taking place. And here's a perfect example of an individual who started their day probably at home, got on the train, and actually was connected conducting a meeting. Right? The definition of work is completely shifting in the environment, which I think presents a lot of opportunities for not just companies, but just frankly individuals in how they measure the results of their work. So how we've been shifting at Regus, number one, we've been growing. And so this desire for flexible workspace has been in high demand for the last number of years. To give you an idea, over the last 5 years, we've grown in Canada from roughly about 20 locations to now 74 locations, and we're going to continue to grow here as we move on over the next couple of years. And on a global scale, we've transitioned from about 1,100 locations to just surpassing our 3,000th location. So one of the things that we're seeing from people and from clients is they're looking for the opportunity to have access to flexible sites. Technology has completely shifted that. So 10 years ago, when people started having access to better Wi-Fi, cloud-based technology, better technology in their hands through smartphones, et cetera, and even just their laptop, there wasn't the accessibility to various locations. So that's why people became reliant on things like coffee shops, right? Because coffee shops were readily available and they offered free Wi-Fi. The big piece was they were located on every corner. Right? So that was what was driving that interest towards flexibility and the demand on something like a coffee shop. Now what we're seeing is as we're building more and more space out, people are turning towards that flexible workspace because, number one, they need greater access to different types of space. Number two, a coffee shop isn't the most secure environment in order to support their needs. And number three, it's not the most professional environment in order to meet a client. So technology is
Have you ever tried to use the Wi-Fi at a Starbucks? I tried to have a Skype call once there, and it was just atrocious. I learned never to trust that sort of internet connection.
You got it. Absolutely. Yeah, we've seen the same thing. So we're seeing the fact that flexibility and the fact of demand has really driven our growth, right? We're trying to open up as many locations where clients are asking us to open up, and we're kind of shifted away from just cities to more focus on micro markets and neighborhoods specifically. Now, how it plays a challenge for us from a technology perspective is a good question. The biggest area is around security, and it's become a real buzz point at this point. And we just talked a little bit about the coffee shop component. One of the challenges with having that much open security or that much open technology is the challenge related to security and keeping your information enclosed, and then keeping your Wi-Fi access on a secure basis. So we found less of a challenge for us here in a flexible work environment like Regus, more of a challenge on the coffee shop side.
Okay, so you're growing. I mean, that's exciting for you. And I wonder, as the country manager, I'm curious to see how you work. Do you get to see a lot of the different Regus locations across Canada?
I do, and it's interesting how my week shifts. So I'll give you a really good example this week. I started my week downtown Toronto because I had meetings located downtown with some clients and some of our key people within Regus. Started my week in downtown Toronto. Yesterday, I happened to be up in Mississauga at our Meadowvale location, mainly because I had some meetings with people that were located in Mississauga as well as North Toronto. So the best place that was mutually convenient for both of us to meet was at our Syntex office. So I happened to head out to our Meadowvale location. Today I'm in Liberty Village, right, which is a great bustling neighborhood on the west side of downtown Toronto for meetings today. So it shifts every single day. Next week I'm in Calgary, and over those 4 days I guarantee I'll be in 9 different centers. 2 weeks ago I was in British Columbia, having a chance to be part of opening up our 2 new centers downtown, and then our new center in Surrey, BC as well. And so I'm blessed, right? Because I seem to be able to have a large number of locations where I can actually go, be productive, meet with clients, and spend my time across each one of the centers.
Yeah, I could imagine a lot of people would actually like that a lot, the potential to work in so many different locations and have that change of pace. You're not looking at the same walls every day. Do you have a favorite place to work?
Yeah, it's funny, we have a lot of centers have their own unique identity and unique approach, especially related to the teams. But I'd probably say my favorite one is Oakville, and it's primarily because it's literally 5 minutes from my house. I can have a chance to hop in the car, hop on my bike, walk to the center, especially in a winter like this last February, and we have a snowstorm that hits. It feels really great being able to drive literally down one street, hit the center, be in the office within a 5 minutes time span versus sitting in traffic for an hour and a half having to deal with a boatload of brake lights.
Yeah, the short commute is always the winner, for sure. Nobody likes to spend their time in traffic. Technology isn't the only trend that we've seen in the workspace and transforming the workspace lately. When you look at what people consider to be desirable workspaces these days, with companies like Google, having a big open space, a collaborative environment with even some sort of wacky stuff like foosball tables in the middle of their space. But what it really comes down to is the cubicle walls coming down, people being able to communicate easily as a team. And I wonder if Regus has adapted to that trend and how it's affected you.
It's affected us in our design. So what's interesting is, if you look back at when Regus first started, we opened up centers to ensure that individual entrepreneurs, smaller based companies that were growing had a chance to call their business or a location, their home, without having to take on all the additional costs from capital, from investment in technology, staffing, furnishings, etc. Right? So we build the center and essentially build offices within the center and have a great administrative staff to help support. But we're starting to see shifts in our design in which we're actually adding more open concept as well to support that co-working environment, that entrepreneurial feel, to ensure that clients have a chance to have access to that type of open space. And the other piece that's happening is many companies are going through this shift. And I think that's what excites me quite a bit, just as an employee or an associate, is that space becomes, I think, much more open, much more amenable to a great work environment. So what's happening is companies who want to head down that path but aren't ready to make the complete investment are turning to companies like Regus or another business center to model out the process and to model out the environment without having to make a big shift in capital. Right? So what we're seeing is companies turn to us, for example, another business center, and actually place a number of associates where they can have open concept space, then also have access to enclosed space like team rooms, meeting rooms, and some individual offices. Because what's being discovered now is it's open concept is obviously the wave of the future, and it's starting to hit the more progressive companies. But what they're also discovering is they still need some space in which, when people need to have a quiet meeting, when people need to grab a smaller team together for brainstorming or for a very specific meeting, or if somebody just needs time to accomplish some tasks, they need to have a chance to get away. So what's happening is the build-outs within new companies are really becoming more multi-centric, right? So you have 3 or 4 different types of designs within one space. And the real innovative companies are also moving to a pathway in which they're not even assigning space designated to individuals. And I'll use Deloitte as a good example. Deloitte, I think, is doing a lot of innovative things here in Canada, in which they're building the new corporate headquarters here in Toronto, in which that building will employ 3,100 people. And within that building itself, there is not one individual who actually has a designated office or a workspace. What happens is every single day, each associate the night prior will sign up or log in via the web to the space they need based on the activities they're going to be performing next day. So that makes the space efficient, and it also allows for use across the multiple type of space that's required. Within Regus, what it's done for us is we ensure that we have those 4 types of space available at the disposal of clients, so they can access the space without having to travel to a hub, one office, or also to test it out here before making a big capital investment to rebuild.
Yeah, and what you're saying about all those different models of space and the different needs for having a different office space scenario definitely rings true to me. I mean, today we were doing a Twitter chat as a team earlier, so we were in our open collaborative space where we could all sit around and talk to each other easily as we participated in this Twitter chat that we were hosting. And now, when I'm connecting with you to do this hangout on air, of course I needed a quiet room, so I've sealed myself off in this corner office and booted out the chairman of the company for a few minutes. So I want to get to our last question of the day here, and I know that we've been talking about some interesting things that Regus is doing around working with startups and providing the sort of collaborative spaces that accelerators and incubators often provide to startups. And this is the type of thing that we've seen popping up in Canada over the last 5 years. I'd say it's a real trend that these incubators, one of the things they just provide simply for these startups is a collaborative space to work and get together with other experts and provide them the space they need to build their business. So tell me about what Regus is doing in that area.
Well, number one, the incubators, entrepreneurs, etc. They're a big part of the lifeblood of our business, and because many times we help transition those types of companies from the space they need right now, limited capital, to move into their conventional space at some point. So they are a big lifeblood for us. And what we try to do is it really hits on multiple different angles. First angle is just in terms of space accessibility, right? We have space available for them at great rates that we're able to offer up in multiple locations, not just in Canada, but around the globe. Right? So we want to make sure that they have the space they can utilize, from a co-working space to a team space to individual offices, to help support their business needs and ensure we fit their budget. So space is one key piece. The other big piece is as companies grow and they shift, they're looking to grow, shift, and travel based on where their business or their product is moving. So one of the things we want to make sure we're doing is we offer them up multiple ways to be able to conduct business. I wouldn't say during their downtime, but during transition time. So one of the big pieces that we've been investing in is what we call the third place. And the third place is outside of work, outside of home, what the new type of work environment looks like. So ensuring that as an entrepreneur is traveling from, let's say, Calgary to Halifax or down to the U.S. or overseas, we want to be able to give that person the opportunity to leverage and access some space where they can get some work done in a productive environment. So whether that comes down to investing in what we call think tanks in airports, to looking at putting Regus space in rail stations, to service stations, to shopping malls, making sure that we have accessibility for that individual in multiple places that redefine where you accomplish work, right to the point, which may be a little more extreme, but not that far down the line, coming up with self-driven automobiles, et cetera, that we can work in from a Regus perspective. Right? That way people can be productive from multiple locations at multiple times of the day. And many times through access to what we just call a business world card. Becoming a member of Regus, having access to those 3,000 plus locations. So we're really trying to shift and move towards the new definition of productivity. Because when you meet with an entrepreneur who's building their business, that becomes a 24/7 environment. Right? And many times a traditional office is not available in a 24/7 perspective. It's available between 8 and 5. Right? So what we want to make sure we do is we have non-traditional locations or destination points like the ones I mentioned in order to help that person maintain productivity at all hours that they would like to ensure they can invest in.
Great. Wayne, thanks so much for joining us today and telling us all about this. It sounds like Regus is really launching itself into a globalized environment, and a lot of interesting things are happening as you adapt to the new ways that people are working today.
It's been exciting. I think we're going to continue to see it evolve as each year goes by as well. So, Brian, thanks for having us today. We appreciate it.
And if you're interested in more about evolving trends in the workplace, you can find related links for that on itbusiness.ca. And again, I'm Brian Jackson. Thank you.
Okay.